probably did exist. Whoops, sorry about that. Um, so we're looking at these African ancestors, and we're looking at early ancestors of man, recognized as not man as we know him, but these early Australopithecines back about 5 or 3 million years ago. Isn't that fantastic? And then about 3 to 1.5 million years ago, they begin to make tools. And then these ancestors or descendants begin to make wonderful tools. And you'll see these very finely shaped points. And somewhere around, probably these are closer to the ones about 40,000 years ago. Now, these great migrations happen at about this time, and the theory is that they happen because their food source basically disappears. Maybe climate changes. Here's the skull of those early Australopithecines. Now we're talking about 5 million years ago. Then we jump up to maybe about 1 million years ago and up into maybe, oh, certainly here, Homo sapiens, our skulls. And you see the gradual development of the skulls. Now, in these grave sites with these bones are wonderful things. And some of them are, in fact, these very highly decorated kinds of artifacts that we're talking about. Excuse me again. African rock painting. And here is, I believe this is Lucy's skull that we're looking at. She was one of the earliest skeletons identified as a Homo neanderthalis, I believe. And you can, if you spend some time, or if you're interested, you can go back and look at the skulls and see how this brow ridge is much heavier here, and certainly here and here. And as we get down to our ancestors and ourselves, that begins to disappear, and the skull itself becomes more rounded and hopefully has a little more room for the brain. Earlier on, though, some of these 10,000 BC rock paintings that you're finding, this is the skeleton that's left of Lucy. And then we look at some other cave paintings and rock paintings. So these people are making art, really, but they're doing more than that. They're showing us something about their culture, something about maybe their mythology, their belief system. This may have been some great spirit, not just an antelope, but in fact some great spirit. And here's a wonderful scene of some natives chasing or herding some antelope. This was a little later, I think, in those last. And here's some more wonderful young, I guess this is an ibis, I'm not sure, and a young colt, I don't know what they call that. There's some southwestern art that gives us this wonderful kind of, it's called the spirit breath, this tunnel that goes from the nose usually down into the very belly of the animal, the real meat of him. And we have this wonderful bird on his back. I don't know if you can see him up there. Usually that conveys a spirit of some sort in cave paintings that we find in the southwestern part of our country as well as other countries. So wonderful pieces of art coming from these early groups of people. Now looking again in Africa, we're looking here at how they begin to roam. Now I'm not going to take each slide. I'm just trying to give you some ideas here as you approach this particular unit. Here's looking at the varied terrain of Africa. You see the high mountains here, and then you look at the desert in the Sahara. And of course, as this land becomes desert over thousands of years, of course it cannot sustain the herds of the animals that these people need to stay alive. So the people follow their food source. As the animals move toward water and vegetation, the people move with the animals. So that's the reason, or at least the explanation we think applies to this great migration of people. Now we're looking specifically at artifacts and buildings, in this case, in an area of Africa called Nubia. And I'll let you spend some time looking at that. I just want to point one other thing out to you in this particular set of ancient slides, and that is if you look at how these figures are really human bodies with animal heads. Now that typically shows the combining of more than one species. And whenever you see that in ancient art, you can pretty well darn think or know that they're talking about beings with supernatural powers, gods in some instance. I think this is the head of a lion. And if you think about it, in our own culture, the same thing is true. We have angels, do we not? The bodies of men, the wings of birds, you know? So it's really pretty fascinating. Then we're looking at some more artifacts. Well, I'll let you go through most of this on your own. You should have this download. Pottery, some other things. Wonderful. Back, you know, look at the timeline here. Queen Taia. And I believe Taia, I think this is Taia, and I believe she was somehow related to Tutankhamun. I'm not sure if she was the mother-in-law or the great-grandmother or something like that. I don't know, but you could look that up when you look at Egyptian art. Very important that you spend a little time here on the mythology of the Egyptians. Fascinating stuff. Uh, know about these and spend a little time reading about what their mythology is about. And then after you understand that mythology, go back and look at some of these pictographs and some of those hieroglyphs. Really fascinating stuff. You've probably heard some of this on television already. And we look through some more in this thing, and then we move into some other cultures in ancient art. But I just wanted to introduce this to you. So I hope this helps a little bit. It's really fascinating. And there's also a little bit about it in your book. Um, Mostly, though, I think I've got some good live links on your discussion questions. If any of those are broken, please get back to me and let me do something about them. Well, thanks for looking.